91 teams to go on my road to predict all 131 teams this college football offseason. And guys, continuing on with the ACC, moving on to the Syracuse Orange. And this is a team that definitely has taken steps up in years past. And this is a team that I think some fans in Syracuse are maybe expecting to be a player towards bowl season. And maybe, hey, this team can go ahead and make a bowl game this year. However, in my opinion, and we'll look at it later, the schedule has got a lot more bumps in the road than last year. So can this Syracuse team find a way to push themselves into the bowl season? Or will Syracuse have trouble winning that sixth game yet again in 2022? What's up, Tailgaters? My name is Tailgate Nate, and welcome to my channel. I'm predicting all 131 teams this college football season, and that means I'm doing your favorite team. So go ahead, hit the subscribe button and ring the bell so you know when your favorite team gets uploaded. And for Syracuse fans out there, you guys are going to know this team a lot better than me. So if you feel like I missed something, want to add something, anything of the sort, please leave it in the comment section down below, and I'll be happy to read through it. Syracuse 2022, let's get into it. This is my 12th ranked team in the ACC coming into the 2022 college football season. And again, this is the Syracuse team that is used to being at the bottom of the ACC. They've started to make steps up, right? They've started to climb those ranks. And last year, they were 5-7, 2-6 in conference. So the expectation now is that they continue to take steps up and maybe possibly push their way into a bowl game. But we'll look at the talent schedule in a minute. Back to last year, though, their offense wasn't spectacular, only around 366 yards per game with around 25 points per game. However, this was one of the better rushing attacks in the ACC, and we'll see why here in a second. But they had over 200 yards per game on the ground. And then defensively, in terms of yards per game, this was the second best defense in the ACC, 330 yards per game with around 26 points per game. So definitely you want that point, that defensive scoring total to go down. You're only allowing opponents to go across the football field around 3.5 times, which is really, really good. Otherwise, get that scoring number lower. That scoring number, even though in terms of yards per game, you were the second best defense in the ACC, that scoring number was still right around middle of the line. So definitely got some things to work on there for the Syracuse Orange. For head coach Dino Babers, let's look at some talent that is leaving and some talent that is coming back or coming in. So backup quarterback at least last year, Tommy DeVito is gone. I believe transferred over to Illinois, had 388 yards, a touchdown, and 2 picks last year. And definitely was not as involved with the offense as he has been in previous years. So you lose an experienced backup option at the quarterback position. Couple running backs leaving the room, Jarvian Howard and Cooper Lutz. Not really any two huge names on the Syracuse rushing attack. In fact, they were only the 4th and 5th leading rushers on the team last year, behind Tommy DeVito at 3rd. And neither of the 3 guys in that top line got over 100 rushing yards last year. So not really losing a whole lot in terms of that rushing production. However, at the wide receiver group, you're losing a couple playmakers. So Sherrod Johnson and Taj Harris, both of them are gone. Neither of them had a touchdown last year, but both of them pretty solid options, pretty solid players in the wide receiver position. But again, nothing crazy is being lost yet. Luke Benson also gone off of this wide receiving and pass catching group. In terms of the defensive side, Cody Roscoe is gone. He had 7.5 sacks last year, which I believe led the team. So there's kind of your first big loss on this team. Curtis Harper, Josh Black, McKinley Williams, some other names leaving there as well. Geoff Canton-Arku, who had 44 tackles last year, gone as well. And then Adrian Cole, going to be leaving this team as well. Had 3 passes defended last year. So again, though, there's nothing really crazy leaving this team, right? There's no crazy loss on this team. And let's look and see what they have coming back. Quarterback Garrett Schrader is coming back. This is the Syracuse passing attack that, again, isn't really the best in the ACC. And in fact, is statistically one of the worst in the nation, at least it was last year. Schrader only had 1,445 yards, 9 touchdowns, and 4 interceptions through the air. However, on the ground was the team's second leading rusher, and leading rusher when you look at the touchdown numbers, had 781 yards and 14 touchdowns for this Syracuse team. Otherwise, running back Sean Tucker proved statistically to be one of the better running backs in the nation last year, had 1,496 yards and 12 touchdowns, was also the second leading receiver with 255 yards. And speaking of receivers, you return a lot of your top targets. Courtney Jackson, Damian Alford, Anthony Quealy, and you get a transfer wide receiver in CJ Hayes coming in for this team as well. He's a transfer, I believe, over from Michigan State. So definitely a good boost to the wide receiver group there. But this is a passing game that definitely needs to get moving, right? Definitely has its work cut out for it. I'll say that. Definitely has got to improve and get better. But you are returning a lot of experience in the passing game. When you look at the defensive side of the ball, leading tackler Michael Jones is coming back. Michael, however you say that. Again, I'm sorry if I mispronounce or butcher names. He had 109 tackles last year. He is coming back. Marlo Wax, another linebacker, had 7 sacks last year. He's coming back. Terry Lockett, a really, really good player on the defensive side of the ball. Didn't really get that much playing time last year. Only 12 tackles with 2 sacks. Figures to play a better role in this defense coming in. And then Garrett Williams, who had 9 passes defended last year. Darian Chestnut, who had 8 passes defended, 3 interceptions last year. And then a transfer defensive back, Elijah Clark, coming into this team. There are some other transfers you can throw in there as well. So this is the Syracuse team that, talent-wise, may be an improved team from last year. However, when you take a look at the Syracuse schedule, this is definitely, in my opinion, a more difficult schedule than last year, especially when you look at the non-conference. So on the road against UConn, at home against Wagner, 2 games that, again, don't really interest me. However, there are 2 non-conference games. It's a year where Syracuse has to play Notre Dame. Now, they do get them at home in the Carrier Dome, but that's still, when you compare the talent levels, a much more talented Notre Dame team. So that's going to be a hard game to win. And you also got a home game against Purdue. So your 2 tricky non-conference games you get at home. So definitely a plus there. However, when you look at the ACC schedule, all the teams here in the ACC may very well be in the top 10 of the conference. And again, of course, you have to play everyone in your own division. So NC State, Clemson, Wake Forest could prove to be 3 of the better 5 teams in the ACC. But your draw from the other division isn't that nice either. So you got to go on the road to play Pitt, among with some other games there. The Virginia game is still a tricky one. Yeah, you get it at home. But there's a lot of games on this schedule for Syracuse, and I'll go through. I've already gone through them again, but in the ACC play, you got home games against Louisville, Virginia, NC State, Florida State, and then road games, of course, against Clemson. Clemson, Pitt, Wake Forest, and Boston College. So, again, more of a deep dive into the schedule. I've kind of talked about it already. Going on the road against Pitt, your reigning ACC champs. You got to go on the road to play Wake Forest, on the road to play Clemson. You get NC State at home, but that's still a really, really good football team. And this non-conference schedule definitely is a challenge for the Syracuse team. I think Purdue is going to be pretty good this year, and I think Purdue can have a really special season. Same thing with Notre Dame. That's a team that, again, they're breaking in a new head coach, but can still push their way towards the college football playoff in 2022. Can the Notre Dame Fighting Irish? This is a very interesting team with Syracuse. It's a very interesting team. I think it's a fairly talented team, but it's got a difficult schedule for the talent that is on this team. Even on the road at Boston College, that's no pushover. At home against Florida State, that's still no pushover either. I really don't see any guaranteed wins for this Syracuse team in conference play. And I think that ends up what may be holding the Syracuse team back from a bowl game in 2022. However, this is a Syracuse team that is talented enough with as good of a run game as they had last year, if that can be as good as it was last year. And this passing attack can take, I'm going to say, a couple steps forward. And this defense, well, if they can just keep teams out of the end zone, again, the yards per game thing worked out for them last year. Now they just got to cut back on that scoring defense, improve it, make it better. This could be a really solid and a surprise football team in 2022. I'm not going to be surprised if this is a player, or if this team is going to play a little bit of spoiler in the ACC this year. I don't do game-by-game predictions. I do a more percentage-based outlook to help me predict a team's record. So if the game's in red, I really just don't see you winning the game. If the game's in orange, I still don't see you winning. But who knows? It's college football, and upsets happen all the time. Yellow are your 50-50 or high upset potential games. Games in yellow-green are games that you should win, but watch out for teams on the other side of the ball. And games in green are games that you should probably end up winning. So 2 games of the green variety, the game against Wagner, a game against UConn. The game against UConn is literally an 80-20 game for me, probably a 79-21 game, somewhere around that mark, but I see Syracuse being able to win that game on the road against UConn. The only thing that makes it tricky for me is, yeah, it's on the road. But overall, when you look at this Syracuse schedule, again, I think this is a really, really hard schedule. I mean, non-conference, you have to play Notre Dame. This is Syracuse year to play Notre Dame. Yeah, you get them at home, but in my opinion, that's a much more talented football team, and I don't know if I necessarily like the Orange chances against the Fighting Irish. Otherwise, when you look at those 2 games surrounding the Notre Dame game, on the road at Clemson, on the road at Pitt, I think those are going to be 2 very, very hard games for the Syracuse team to win, and I don't see them having much of a shot in either one. When you look here, a home game against Purdue, again, I think Purdue is going to be a pretty special team this year. Yes, they get the game in the Carrier Dome, but it's going to take an upset in order for Syracuse to pull this off, and Purdue could prove to have one of the best passing attacks in the entire nation in 2022. So, watch out for that. Otherwise, when you look at some of the more winnable games in the ACC, I don't really see you having much of a shot against NC State or Wake Forest either. But when you look at some of the more winnable games in the ACC, at home against Florida State, I think that Florida State team could be a little bit more improved from last year. Boston College, same thing, and you got to go on the road to play that team as well. Meanwhile, you get Virginia at home. I think that's a very winnable game for Syracuse. And you get Louisville at home. Louisville, of course, returning Malik Cunningham, but losing out on some of those bigger pieces, like Tyler Harrell, the speedster wide receiver, gone. Some running backs off that team gone. But I still think Louisville's going to be pretty good. I think Virginia can be pretty good. And I think Boston College can be pretty good. This is the Syracuse team that, besides UConn and Wagner, I think all 10 of these teams on Syracuse schedule could be playing in the postseason. And again, like I said, I think the schedule is what is going to hold Syracuse back. So while the record drops to 4-8 from last year at 5-7, I do see that best case scenario being 7-5. And it's not going to surprise me at all to see the Syracuse team being a team that we're going to see in bowl season. In my opinion, it's going to need to take some upsets in order to pull that off. Maybe like a home win. Again, that game, I think, this is the first time I'll say this, but that game against Louisville at the start of the season is crucial. If they win that game, they can go ahead and do some good things. And I could see Syracuse starting out this year 4-1, 3-2, somewhere in there, and then lose out. That's absolutely a great possibility. And they just have a very, very tough stretch of games there with NC State, Clemson, Notre Dame, Pitt, Florida State, Wake Forest, on the road at Boston College. It's just a very, very tough schedule. I think Syracuse, with the talent coming back on this team, can do it. Although, I'm going to predict that it doesn't happen. So while the record drops to 4-8, I think the Syracuse team still is taking steps in the right direction. So that's my predictions on the Syracuse Orange in 2022. Be sure you guys leave a like, comment, subscribe. Anything you can help support the channel does mean a lot to me. And remember to play hard, but tailgate harder. I'll see all of you guys in the next video. Goodbye.